I was fourth in the pickup line at Bright Harbor Daycare, engine running, heat blowing on my knees, when my husband told me his family had already had Christmas. Without me, I could have survived that. Without our 4-year-old was a different sentence entirely. I want to tell you what I said back to him, but that isn't the part that matters. What matters is what my daughter said from the back seat 40 seconds later, and what I was scheduled to sign on Thursday morning. It was December 23rd, a Monday, cold enough that the plowed snow along the curb had gone gray. Bright Harbor stays open through the 23rd for parents who still have to work. Half the classrooms were already dark. Junie came out carrying a sheet of red construction paper in both hands. The way you carry something full of soup. Don't fold it, Mommy. I'm not folding it. The glitter comes off when you fold it. She had spent the afternoon on it. Inside was a green shape I understood to be a tree, and 4 stick figures holding hands, and enough glitter to qualify as a workplace hazard. It was for her grandmother. We were supposed to be at Bunny's house the next afternoon at 4. At least, that was what I thought. I got her buckled, pulled out of the lot, and called Grant through the Bluetooth. He picked up on the 4th ring. Hey! There was noise behind him, people talking, a television, silverware against a plate. What time tomorrow? I asked. Nothing. Junie leaned forward as far as the straps allowed. Ask Daddy if Grandma will like my card. You heard her, I said. Still nothing. For half a second, I thought the call had dropped. Then I heard Bunny somewhere behind him. Oh, give me that. And a few seconds later, she was on the line, bright as a woman confirming a hair appointment. Erin, honey, hi. Bunny, what time are we coming tomorrow? A tiny pause. Oh, we did Christmas yesterday, I laughed. Not because it was funny. Sometimes your brain refuses a sentence before it agrees to understand it. You did what? We did Christmas yesterday. Everyone was free, so we just went ahead. I watched a minivan back out of the space in front of me. Everyone, well, Caleb was here, Marissa came, my sister came, the cousins stopped in after. Caleb is Grant's son from his first marriage. Marissa is his first marriage. I kept my hands at 10 and 2. And nobody thought Junie might want Christmas with her grandmother. Bunny's tone shifted. Not much, just enough. Erin, don't make this into something. 11 years of that phrase. Don't make it awkward. Don't take it that way. Don't start. Apparently, I had the rare gift of creating tension simply by noticing when someone had treated me badly. Put Grant back on. Movement. Then his voice, low, half turned away from the room. Erin, what happened? Nothing happened. You had Christmas without your wife and your daughter. Mom moved the date. That isn't the point. Erin, why didn't you call me? He exhaled through his nose. You know how things get. How do things get? Give me one example. He didn't have one. The pause went on too long, and behind him, the room had gone quieter, the way rooms do when a phone call turns into something else. Then he said it. It was quieter without you two there. The car went completely still. The heater kept running. That was the only sound, and from the back seat, very small, in the grammar of a 4-year-old. Is it a bad card now? I looked at her in the mirror. Her hands were flat on top of it, protecting the glitter. Something in me stopped shaking and started working. Good to know, I said. One question, Grant, what did you tell your mother about Thursday? I'm the one signing. The background noise stopped, not the television. The people. I hung up. For about 30 seconds, I felt magnificent. Then Junie said, should I keep it? Every clever thing I had ever thought of disappeared. I pulled over on Cemetery Road and turned around in my seat. You made it because you love her, Bug. That part belongs to you. What she does with it doesn't. She thought about that with her whole face. Then she nodded once, the way she does. At home, she carried it inside herself and stuck it to the refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a slice of watermelon. She can have it later, she said. Junie went down at 8 without arguing, which she only does when something has gone wrong and she can't name it. I made coffee I did not need and opened Facebook at the kitchen table. Bunny had posted 22 photographs. I looked at all of them. The tree in the front window, my sister-in-law's Jell-O salad in the good bowl, Caleb on the arm of the recliner, Marissa in the blue chair by the fireplace, laughing at something outside the frame, Grant in the middle of the couch, with his arm along the back of it, comfortable in a way I had not seen him look in about 4 years. The caption said, "Everyone under one roof at last." I read that sentence more times than a person should. Then I looked at what he was wearing, a moss green wool shirt jacket. Not a jacket he owned, a jacket I had bought him in October from a place in German Village, because he had stopped in front of the window and said nothing for a second too long. And after 11 years, you learn to read a man's silences the way you read a gauge. It was in the hall closet, wrapped. I had used the paper with the small gold stars because he always says the stars look like a kid wrapped it, and he always says it like a compliment. I put the coffee down and walked out to the closet. The box was open. The tissue paper was still inside, folded back on both sides, the way you fold it when you intend to close it again later. I stood there for a while. Then I went back to the kitchen and did 3 things. The first took 4 minutes. I froze my credit at Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Anyone can do it. It is free. It takes about the length of a commercial break. And it means no new account can be opened in your name until you personally lift it. The second took 6. I called the after-hours line at the credit union and left a message for the loan department. My name is Erin Kessler. I am listed as a borrower on a file closing this Thursday, and I am requesting that nothing be processed, disbursed, or presented for signature under my name without direct verbal confirmation from me. Not from my husband, from me. I left my cell number twice and said the whole thing slowly, because I have listened to enough recorded lines in my career to know that the person transcribing it is tired and it is nearly Christmas. The third took 20. I screenshotted all 22 photographs, plus the caption, plus the timestamp, and saved them into a folder on my laptop labeled with the date. I did not send a message. I did not comment. I did not text a single person in that family. I have spent 22 years in commercial underwriting. The first thing you learn is that the loudest party in a dispute is almost always the one with the weakest file. The second thing you learn is that people who are lying do it in a hurry, and people who are not lying can afford to wait. So I closed the laptop and sat there with the refrigerator humming and Junie's white noise machine going upstairs through a baby monitor. We still keep plugged in because some habits outlive their reasons. I kept thinking about the tissue paper. He hadn't torn anything. He hadn't ripped the paper off and shoved the box back and hoped. He had unfolded it, lifted the jacket out, and folded the tissue back down along both sides so that the box would still look closed. That takes about 40 seconds. 40 seconds is not an impulse. 40 seconds is a decision with a small amount of housekeeping attached to it. I thought about him standing in that closet in the dark, in a coat, probably already late, doing 40 careful seconds of work so that I would not notice on my way out the door. At 9:40, the garage door started up. I did not move. Junie's card was 4 feet away on the refrigerator. Gold stars and a green tornado of a tree. holding its own against a slice of watermelon. I put my hands flat on the table, the way she had held it. I heard the side door. I heard his keys go into the bowl in the mudroom, and I let him come to me. He came in still wearing it. I don't think he had planned that. He'd worn it to his mother's, worn it in the car, and forgotten it the way you forget your own hands. He stopped in the mudroom doorway, and I watched him remember. "Don't start," he said. That was the opening. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I should have called." Just a preemptive strike against a sentence I hadn't said yet. "Why didn't you tell me the date changed?" He dropped his keys in the bowl. "Caleb had work stuff. Caleb told us 3 weeks ago he was off through the 26th. He pulled out the chair across from me. "Fine. Marissa was coming because Caleb wanted her there." That still isn't an answer. Mom didn't want drama. What drama? You and Marissa in the same room. Marissa and I have been in the same room at 2 graduations, a funeral, and every birthday that child has had. It's different now. How? He leaned back. You get tense. 3 reasons in 90 seconds. When a file changes its story 3 times before you've asked a hard question, you stop reading it for information and start reading it for pattern. "Give me one example," I said. He opened his mouth. Nothing came. "You make everything into a thing," he said finally. "That's a category. I asked for an example." "I'm not doing this. That's convenient." He shoved the chair back a few inches. Then, quieter. "You had no business bringing up my mother's loan on speakerphone." And there was the actual injury, not the lie, the audience. "So that's what you're upset about? You embarrassed me." "In front of who?" "My family." Your family had just finished explaining that the house was quieter without your wife and your 4-year-old. He shook his head. "You always do this. You turn everything into money." "I didn't mention money until your mother told me I wasn't part of Christmas." "That is exactly what I mean." "No. Grant, that is not what you mean." He stood up, then didn't leave, which is its own kind of answer. "You always have to be the one," he said. "The good credit, the steady paycheck, the one everybody calls, everybody knows it." The hardscape company went under in 2019. 2 bad winters, a blown hydraulic on the Mini X he couldn't finance a replacement for, and a commercial client who filed Chapter 11 owing him $31,000. He wasn't lazy. He was up at 5 for 9 years. He just never got back what losing it took. There had been signs. When a check came to the table and I reached for it, he'd joke too loudly about the CFO. When Bunny needed a furnace part, she called him, and then he came and asked me. And 2 Thanksgivings ago, she said, over a table of 10, "Thank God somebody in that house knows how to keep the lights on." And everybody laughed, and Grant laughed too. And I filed his face away under things a reasonable wife pretends not to see. I was 14 the first time I signed my mother's name on something. A gas company extension, February. And Dee was 9 and had a cough that wouldn't quit. My hand didn't shake. It should have. I've been the one who signs things ever since. Leases, claims, school forms for a sister who wasn't mine to raise, and eventually a mortgage, a policy, a life. Nobody ever offered me the job. I just never put in notice. I looked at my husband in the jacket I bought him and understood that we had been having 2 different marriages in the same house. He went upstairs a little after 11. My phone buzzed at 11:20. "Caleb, I'm sorry about yesterday. I thought you'd said no." I called him. He picked up on the first ring, which tells you he'd been holding the phone. "Caleb, what exactly did your dad tell you?" A pause. "That you wouldn't come if my mom was there." "I never said that." Yeah, I figured that out about an hour ago, he breathed out. He told everybody not to call you about it. Said you'd made your choice. Did anyone ask about Junie? My mom did. Another pause. Longer. Dad said Junie was too little to remember. I closed my eyes. Erin, he said, it wasn't a last-minute thing. Dad asked me 9 days ago to keep the 22nd open. I stood in my own kitchen with the heat ticking in the vents. Nobody had forgotten to call me. They had been asked not to. The alert came at 8:11 on Christmas Eve morning, and it did not come from my husband. New mortgage inquiry on your Experian file. $168,000. Inquiry date, December 18th. I sat down on the second stair. December 18 was a Wednesday. On December 18th, I made chili and asked him whether to get his mother a heated blanket. I called it 8:20. Alma Reyes in loan services was pleasant until she wasn't. Ms. Kessler, your closing disclosure went out on the 20th. Federal rule, every borrower gets it 3 business days before signing. It shows delivered. Delivered where? Then a silence I recognized, because I have made it myself when a file stops being routine. To an email address I'm going to read to you, she said, and I need you to tell me if it's yours. It was not mine. A Gmail account, my first initial, our last name, a 4 at the end. She sent me the package while we were still on the line. I opened it at the kitchen table with the tree lights going in the front window, which is a very festive setting in which to learn what you have agreed to. Existing mortgage balance, a home equity line from 2019, $52,000, which I had never heard of. Credit cards, closing costs, roof work, $31,400, which matched the estimate I had actually seen, and one line I had to read 3 times. Cash out to borrower, 34 is. I called Grant. He answered like a man who'd been awake an hour choosing a tone. Why is your mother borrowing $168,000? It's the roof and the consolidation. It's $52,000 of home equity line I've never heard of, and $34,000 in cash. What's the 34 for? She wants a cushion. She's 73. Then why didn't anyone tell me? We did tell you. A pause. Erin, you forget things when you're under stress. That one was almost impressive. Not because it was clever, because of how calm it was. Do not tell me I forgot agreeing to $34,000. I have to go. Of course you do. And before anyone asks why he didn't climb up there himself, 2-story pitch, 1986 build, and he poured patios, he never roofed. An uninsured relative up there voids her homeowner's policy. The moment anything goes wrong, pricing that risk is my job. Here is why I had said yes in the first place. In 2013, we were $22,000 short on the down payment for this house. Grant's father, Roy, wrote a check at his kitchen table and slid it across without a word about interest or terms. In 2019, I paid every dollar of it back. Roy took the check, looked at it, and tore it in half in front of me. I didn't lend it to you, Erin, he said. I lent it to my son. You're just the one who paid it back. That tells me which one of the 2 of you I should have been worried about. Hy died in 21. I promised him nothing out loud, but I had seen the stains spreading across Bunny's hallway ceiling and stood in her kitchen while Rain went into a Cool Whip container by the door. Some promises don't require sentences. I left a message with a family attorney a coworker had used. Gwen Tuckerman called me back in 25 minutes. Family law doesn't take December off, she said. Tell me the shape of it. I told her. She asked if I'd signed the note, if anything had been disbursed, if I'd moved money or changed locks. No to all 4. Good. Don't. Now hear the part nobody explained to you. You aren't co-signing. On a cash-out refinance, every borrower has to be on title. Your name goes on the deed. On her house. On her house, Ohio is one of 3 states that still has dower. Revised Code 2103.02. The second your name touches that deed, your husband acquires a dower interest in his mother's home. If this marriage ever ends, that house is in the conversation. I put my hand flat on the table. One more thing, she said. If you go anywhere, text him where you are and when he can see your daughter. In writing, not because he's earned it, because a judge may read that text someday, and you want it to say exactly what it says. I wrote one sentence on the back of a grocery receipt. Declining to borrow $168,000 for another adult is not revenge. It's a decision. We had grilled cheese and tomato soup for Christmas Eve dinner. I had planned a ham. There was a ham in the refrigerator, brined since Sunday, and I could not make myself look at it. So I stood at the stove with the good pan and made 2 sandwiches, and Junie dipped hers until it fell apart, which she considers the correct outcome. Does Santa know we moved? She asked. We didn't move, bug. But we're not going to Grandma's. No, but we're here, and this is where we live, and he has GPS. She accepted that completely. 4 is a wonderful age. You can solve almost anything with a plausible noun. We watched the Charlie Brown special. She fell asleep on my arm during the part with the little tree, and I carried her up and put her down in her clothes, which I never do, and did not care. At 7:10, my phone lit up. Caleb. Erin. His voice was pitched low, the way you talk in a house where someone else is awake. I'm at Grandma's. She asked me to sort the loan file. You know how she keeps everything in stacks. I did. Bunny considered a filing system an infringement on personal liberty. There's something in it, he said. I'm going to send you a picture. Just look at it before you say anything. It came through 30 seconds later. A printed email from a realtor. The subject line had a listing number and the words Gulf Access, Venice, Florida. A 2-bedroom seasonal condo in a building put up in 1983. Asking $340,000. Standard Florida contract. 10% earnest money at signing. $34,000. I set the phone down on the counter and put both hands on the edge of it and looked at the tree in the front window for a while. Then I picked it back up and read it again, in case the number had reconsidered. It had not. At the bottom of the page, under the realtor's signature block, Bunny had written 4 words in ballpoint in the small tidy hand she uses for church directories and casserole labels. Grant says Erin signs the 26th. Not Erin is helping. Not Erin agreed. Grant says Erin signs. I typed to Caleb. Is there more? The 3 dots started and stopped twice. Then a second photograph came. It was a deed. A quitclaim deed, prepared and formatted, with a legal description of the property and a preparer's block at the top. A law office on Northwest Boulevard in Upper Arlington. Grantor, Bernadette M. Kessler, Grantee, Bernadette M. Kessler and Erin D. Kessler, unsigned, blank notary block, blank witness lines. And in the corner, the date it had been drafted, December 4. I want you to sit with that the way I had to. December 4 is before Grant asked his son to hold the 22nd open. December 4 is before the tree went up in my living room. On December 4th, I had lunch with Bunny at a Bob Evans on Fishinger Road, and she asked me how Junie was sleeping and whether I thought the roofer was reputable. And she had already paid a lawyer to draw up the instrument that would put my name on her house. There had been no confusion. There had been no last-minute scramble, No misunderstanding about a date. No scheduling accident that a reasonable family might have handled badly under stress. There had been a plan, with a sequence, and I was a step in it. The deed goes to record, my name goes on title, the loan funds. 34,000 walks out the door and becomes earnest money on a 42-year-old building 900 miles from the hallway with the water stain in it. And the only piece that had not yet been obtained was a signature from a woman who had been signing other people's paperwork since she was 14 years old. I heard the side door. Grant came through the mudroom carrying a paper grocery bag from his mother's house. Leftovers. Probably ham, probably the good ham, wrapped in foil by a woman who had never once sent me home empty-handed. He stopped when he saw me sitting at the table with the tree lights on behind me and the phone face up in front of me. I turned the screen around so he could see it. "Merry Christmas, Grant," I said. "Tell me about Venice." He set the bag on the counter. "Caleb sent you that?" Of all the sentences available to him, with $168,000 on the table and a Florida condo inside it, his first concern was chain of custody. "Let's say Caleb committed the great Christmas Eve filing crime," I said. "Now tell me about Venice." "It's not what you think." "Then correct me." He pulled out a chair and did not sit in it. "Mom's wanted to winter somewhere warm since before Dad died. They talked about it for years. They never got to." "I know." "She's 73. Erin." "I know how old she is. She deserves a warm January. She deserves a roof that doesn't leak, and a house that's safe, and a life that isn't all arithmetic. What she doesn't get is to buy it quietly, with my income and my credit and a deed she had drawn up on the 4th of December. "You make it sound like theft." "Then why didn't anyone tell me?" He looked at the window. "Grant, why didn't anyone tell me?" "Because you would have said no." No misunderstanding, no moved date, just the reason, standing in my kitchen in a coat. "On the 21st, I said. "You texted me to bring the folding chairs. You said your mother always runs short. The next morning, you texted me to pick up the cranberry relish she likes from Kroger. You were already 9 days into this. Why would you do that?" And he told me, "That is the part I have never been able to put down. Because if I told you a week out, you'd have called Mom, and if I told you that morning, you'd have driven over anyway with the kid and the chairs. I needed you to find out when it was already finished." I sat with that. "So it wasn't cowardice," I said. "It was scheduling." "That's not fair." "It's accurate. Those aren't the same thing. But tonight, I only have one of them." Hun put his hands on the back of the chair. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost the edge, and what was underneath it was older than this week. "Every time something breaks, she calls me. Every single time. And then what do? I come in here, and I ask you, furnace, taxes, her car. I'm 50 years old, and I'm a middleman in my own family." He looked up. "For one night, I wanted to sit in my mother's living room and not be Erin Kessler's husband. I want to be honest about my half of this, because it exists. I took the bills over in 2019 because someone had to. Then the taxes, because it was faster. Then the insurance, the refinance on this house, the decision about which preschool, the decision about the water heater. Some of it was necessary. Some of it was me doing the only thing I have ever known how to do when a room gets uncertain, which is to pick up the pen. I never asked him what that felt like from the passenger seat. That is mine, and I have to carry it. But there is a distance between a feeling and what a person builds out of it." "Fine," I said. "You were angry. You were embarrassed. You wanted one night as somebody else. Explain Junie." His face changed. "Erin, Explain why a 4-year-old missed Christmas with her grandmother. He looked toward the hallway, where her boots were. Mom thought bringing her without you would raise questions. Simpler. My phone rang. Marisa. Don't answer that, Grant said. I answered it. She got right to it. Caleb told me, Erin, I need you to know something. Grant told me you refused to come if I was there. If I had known you and Junie were kept out on purpose, I would not have walked in that door. I believed her. And the photos? I asked. She exhaled. Bunny moved 3 chairs before she took them. 11 years I had been managed, and so had she, by a woman with a good hand for seating arrangements. I went upstairs and packed a bag, and then Junie's, and I sent one text before I backed out of the driveway. We're at Dee's in Delaware. You can see Junie Saturday. Anytime you want. I watched him read it through the kitchen window. He looked at the phone for a long moment, and then he sat down on the bottom stair in his coat. It wasn't the anger that reached him. It was the fairness. Bunny called it a meeting. She phoned on Christmas night and said the 4 of us would sit down like adults at the credit union on Thursday, so everyone could see what kind of person I was being. I said Thursday was fine. I did not go there to win an argument. I went to make a financial decision. That distinction is the only reason I slept. 1097. December 26. Gray carpet, a fake poinsettia, a Keurig behind the counter working through something personal. Bunny wore her camel coat and the expression of a woman who had convened a performance review. Grant looked like he hadn't slept. Caleb sat beside him with his hands in his lap. Alma Reyes brought us into a conference room, opened a folder, and looked around the table. Before we start, is everyone here a party to this loan? I tipped my head toward Caleb. He's my grandson, Bunny said. I understand, ma'am. I can't discuss loan terms with a non-borrower present, Mr. Kessler. I'll have to ask you to wait in the lobby. He's family. He isn't on the note. Alma said it the way you say a weight limit. Caleb stood up and went out, and closed the door behind him without being asked to. Alma put her pen down. Ms. Kessler, are you signing today? No. She closed the folder. Then we're finished. I'll void the file this afternoon. 90 seconds, start to finish. Nobody shouted. Nobody stormed out. A folder closed and a pen stayed capped. And sometimes that is the entire shape of a consequence. The parking lot was 28 degrees. Bunny came after me with her coat open. You have humiliated me. I opened my trunk, took out my own folder, and laid it on the hood of my car while my breath went up in front of me. The closing disclosure, the roof estimate, $31,400. From the roofer she and I had both met. The email from Venice, the unsigned deed with December 4 in the corner. Screenshots of a text telling me to bring the folding chairs because Mom always runs short. Caleb came out of the lobby and stood at the end of the hood. Bunny, I said. That building went up in 1983, after Surfside. Florida requires a structural integrity reserve study on every condominium over 3 stories, and reserves can't be waived anymore. I have underwritten these buildings. A special assessment on a 42-year-old Gulfside property runs $40,000 to $90,000, and it is not optional, and it does not wait for you to be ready. You would be borrowing against a house in Ohio to buy a bill you cannot pay in Florida. I am not protecting myself out here. I am the only person in this parking lot doing arithmetic. She looked at the deed instead of at me. You could sell, I said. I know why you won't. A 2-bedroom rental in Upper Arlington runs more than your current payment, and you'd be a tenant at 73. I asked about the other kind, she said quietly. The reverse one, last spring. and they told you there wasn't enough equity left. She didn't deny it. There wasn't. The 2006 cash out, then $52,000 on a line of credit in 2019. A house bought in 1986 and drawn down 3 separate times. And Roy hadn't been dead a year for one of them. Caleb spoke without raising his voice. Grandma, you're refinancing because you can't make the payments you've already got. Caleb. They ran my numbers in October. $58,000 in student loans and 11 months at my job. I didn't qualify. He looked at his father. So you went to the only person left? Bunny straightened. This family was happier before everything had to be about your feelings. I had a sentence ready. I didn't need it. Grandma, Caleb said, Dad lied to 6 people. That isn't Erin's feelings. That's just a list. She got into her car. Nobody slammed anything. Grant followed me to my door. Erin, what am I supposed to do now? There was a version of me, most of my life. In fact, who would have answered that? Found the counselor, made the call, written the apology he could send his mother. Fix the thing so that everyone could go back to being comfortable around me. I opened my door. For once, Grant, I said, figure out what you did without asking me to fix it. Leaving does not feel the way people imagine leaving feels. There is no music. Mostly there are laundry baskets. Junie and I spent 3 weeks in Dee's guest room in Delaware. I hung my work clothes on the back of the closet door because there was nowhere else for them. Junie slept in a twin bed beside me, and by morning occupied 3/4 of it, at an angle no adult could achieve. In late January, I signed a lease on a 2-bedroom in Grandview Heights, beige carpet, a small kitchen, a living room window with a view of another living room window. The dishwasher worked. Nobody in that building had ever asked me to co-sign anything. I told Gwen I still intended to pay the roofer directly. The amount I had promised, straight to the contractor and not into anyone's loan. I never got the chance. Grant kept a truck, a 2011 F-250, the last one from the company. Transmission gone since 2021, sitting in our garage under a tarp with the tires going soft. It hadn't moved in 3 years. I had never once told him to sell it, and he had never once explained why he didn't. Because we both knew, and some things you leave alone in a marriage out of respect rather than avoidance. On a Tuesday in February, I drove past the house to pick up the rest of Junie's winter things. The garage door was up. The bay was empty. My phone buzzed while I was still on the street. Roofs paid. Tomash starts, Monday. You don't have to. I sat at the curb in front of a house I had bought with a check from a man who tore up his own repayment, and I did not text back for a long time. Marissa asked me to coffee in March. 11 years, and we had never once sat at a table without Grant, somewhere in the building. I want to tell you something, she said. When we split in 2013, Bunny told everyone I walked out, cousins, the church, all of them. Do you know what she actually said to me? Maybe you two just need some space. And then she came over on a Saturday and helped me pack the kitchen. She wrapped my glasses in newspaper. I put my cup down. She did the same thing to me. Erin, she just used a different holiday. We started counseling in February with a woman named Dr. Faye Okonjo, who has a low voice and a clock she does not look at. At the 4th session, Grant was explaining the business again. The 2 winters, the hydraulic, the client who filed Chapter 11. And she let him get about 90 seconds in. Grant, she said, do you want Erin to understand why you did it, or do you want to be responsible for having done it? He stopped. Those are 2 different rooms, she said. You can only stand in one of them at a time. Nobody said anything after that. I have been in that marriage for 11 years, and those were the quietest 60 seconds of it. Something moved after that, not fast. He stopped arguing with the shape of what he'd done and started sitting inside it, which is harder and less flattering, and the only thing that ever actually works. In April, he asked if he could talk to Junie with me in the room. I got down on the floor of my apartment, so his eyes were level with hers, which he had not done since she was 2. Daddy made a bad choice at Christmas. She kept coloring. You didn't invite me. No. Why? He took a second. Because Daddy made something easier for himself. And it hurt you. She thought about it with her whole face, the way she does. Okay, she said. Can I have the purple one? 4-year-olds accept an apology without convening a hearing. They just want the purple one. Grant looked up at me. I knew that look. It was the look that has ended 1,000 arguments in that house. The one that asks me to say it's okay, to close the loop, to hand everyone back their comfort so we can all go have dinner. He wanted me to tell him it was fine. I handed Junie the purple crayon instead. Bunny asked to visit in late April. I said yes, with 3 conditions, and I said them out loud instead of hoping she'd guess. No criticizing me in front of Junie, no discussing the separation with her. And she was never to be told that the family had Christmas without her because her mother was difficult. Bunny did not care for the rules. She followed them anyway. She came to the apartment with a Target bag and a stuffed rabbit in it. Junie hugged her at the knees. I made coffee. For 20 minutes, we were so polite it felt like a summit. Then Junie said, "Wait," and ran down the hall. She came back with a piece of red construction paper. It had been on Dee's refrigerator, then in a shoebox, then in the plastic bin she calls her treasures. The glitter was gone in patches. One corner had a soft fold in it from being carried by a 4-year-old through 3 addresses. She held it out with both hands. I saved it for you. Bunny took it. You did? You didn't get it at Christmas. Inside was a crooked green tree and 4 stick figures holding hands. Bunny touched the page with one finger and did not say anything for a while, and then she wiped under one eye and said thank you, sweetheart, and meant it. There are moments when you can make your point, and moments when making it would ruin it. I let that one alone. Then she looked around my living room. It's small, she said, but I suppose it's temporary. No, Bunny, I said. It's mine. The divorce was final in September. There was no courtroom scene. There was a hallway, a clerk, and a stamp. It took 9 minutes. I had spent longer than that in the pickup line. We split what there was to split. Grant has Junie 3 nights every other week and every Wednesday, and he has never once been late, which I did not expect and have decided to simply accept as a fact rather than examine it for motive. In October, I opened a 529 for her. College savings, tax-advantaged, boring as a bank lobby. The first deposit was $31,400. It was a number I already had memorized. I just finally put it somewhere it belonged. In November, my phone rang, and it was Bunny. Her transmission had gone, $4,600, and she did not ask me for a thing, because she is better at this than that. I'm not asking you for anything, she said. I just thought you should know. Since Junie rides in that car, I looked out my window at the other window. Thank you for telling me, I said. I hope you get it sorted out. And then I said goodbye, and I hung up. And my hands were completely steady. I was 14 the first time I signed a name that wasn't mine, and my hand didn't shake then either. But that was a girl who had gone numb. This was a woman who had simply put something down. Grant is a better father than he was. He is not a better husband, because he is not my husband. Both of those are true, and neither one cancels the other. Junie has 2 homes now, and one of them has a very loud dishwasher. And she thinks that's hilarious. For most of my life, I thought being the responsible one was a personality. It wasn't. It was a job. Nobody hired me for it. I was 14, and I just never put in notice. I'm still generous. I bought a roof once and a college fund once, and I'd do the second one again tomorrow. You can be generous without being useful to people who don't respect you, and you can forgive someone completely without ever handing them the same pen twice. Somewhere in your family, there is probably a person who is counting on you never saying that one word out loud. Maybe you've already said it. Maybe you're still practicing it in the car. So, here's what I'd like to know. And I do read them. How old were you when you finally said it? Just the number is enough. And if you want to know what happened the following Christmas, because something did, subscribe. And I'll tell you that one next. Thank you for staying with me. Tell me where you're listening from tonight. I like knowing who's out there.